The secret CIA's MKUltra program was launched during the Cold War to develop mind control techniques. Prompted by fears that American prisoners of war had been brainwashed during the Korean War, the CIA funneled millions into psychiatric institutions across the US and Canada to conduct horrible tests. One early project, Operation Midnight Climax, used prostitutes to lure men into safe houses where they were secretly given substances. One of the most disturbing figures was Dr. Ewan Cameron, who used brutal techniques like deep patterning and psychic driving, where patients were drugged, shocked, and subjected to recorded messages played thousands of times. In one case, a patient heard "Your mother hates you" over 250,000 times. He also used electroshock therapy at up to 75 times normal strength, intending to erase memories and rebuild minds from scratch. Patients suffered seizures, amnesia, personality changes, and lost touch with reality. Some were kept in drug-induced sleep for weeks. Many never recovered or became estranged from their families. In 1973, the CIA destroyed most records, burying the program's full scope. Declassified files exposed by John Mark's book and the 1975 church comedy hearings revealed the truth, but the CIA dodged full accountability. Rumors persist that MKUltra continues under new names. The Tunguska Event was a massive explosion that occurred on June 30th, 1908, near the Tunguska River in Siberia, flattening over 18 million trees across more than 2,000 square kilometers. It was felt hundreds of kilometers away, shattering windows and shaking buildings. Eyewitnesses described a glowing blue object crossing the sky, followed by a blinding flash, deafening noise, and shockwaves strong enough to knock people off their feet even from dozens of kilometers away. The blast caused seismic tremors recorded across Eurasia and pressure waves detected as far as the US. In the following days, night skies across Europe and Asia glowed unusually bright. No crater was found, but scorched branchless trees stood upright at the epicenter, and nickel-iron spheres pointed to a mid-air meteor explosion, 1,000 times stronger than Hiroshima's bomb. This theory remains the mainstream explanation, but some claim it was a nuclear explosion caused by a crashing UFO or alien weapon, citing unusual magnetic activity recorded at the time. Others speculate Nikola Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower accidentally directed a beam of energy at Tunguska. A 1973 paper even proposed a mini black hole impact. While none of these theories are widely accepted, the true cause remains unresolved. Soviet-era secrecy around early expeditions fuels speculation that governments hid evidence of extraterrestrial or experimental tech to avoid panic. The Dark Ages span a period from the fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476 to around the year 1000 AD. Unlike the rich records of the Islamic world, China or India during the same centuries, in Europe, few wars, inventions or major events are clearly documented. This has raised suspicions that the narrative of this era may not only be incomplete, but deliberately constructed. Central to this theory is the Vatican's control over knowledge after Rome's collapse. Monastic orders preserved and copied texts, but only those that aligned with church doctrine. Manuscripts were edited, censored, or hidden away in the Vatican's secret archives, many of which remain off-limits to this day. Some argue this wasn't accidental. The phantom time hypothesis takes this further, proposing that nearly 300 years of early medieval history, from 614 to 911, were fabricated. The theory suggests that Holy Roman Emperor Otto III and Pope Sylvester II manipulated the calendar to legitimize Otto's reign, making it seem like they were ruling in the year 1000, a powerful and symbolic date. Supporting evidence includes a lack of archaeological proof for certain events, mismatched astronomical data like eclipse records, and gaps in papal succession. The Carolingian Renaissance, the 8th and 9th centuries, saw a brief cultural revival under Charlemagne, possibly a controlled release of knowledge to reinforce church authority. But while Europe stagnated, civilizations elsewhere surged ahead in science, medicine, and innovation. So maybe the Dark Ages were less about cultural collapse and more about institutional suppression. In the 1800s, European scholars repackaged this period as an era of ignorance, pushing a simplified story that Europe was backward while ignoring advances in the rest of the world. The Renaissance, billed as a sudden awakening, may have been a gradual unveiling of suppressed texts tightly managed by the Church. The question is, do we live in 2025 or 1725? The Library of Alexandria, founded in the 3rd century BC in Egypt, was the ancient world's greatest knowledge hub, housing up to 500,000 texts on science, history, and philosophy. Its gradual destruction over centuries, starting with Julius Caesar's siege in 48 BC and culminating with Christian uprisings in 391 AD, erased countless works in the fields of optics and medicine. Archimedes reportedly lost half of his writings, especially those on mechanics and conics. Historical texts about Alexander the Great's campaigns, Stoicism, agnosticism, and Northern Europe were also lost. A devastating tsunami in 365 AD, triggered by an undersea earthquake near Crete or Cyprus, leveled Alexandria and likely destroyed whatever was left of the library. As the city shifted from Greek to Roman, Christian, and Muslim rule, the library's contents were seen less as a treasure and more as a threat. Theories suggest Roman and early Christian authorities deliberately neglected or burned texts deemed heretical, prioritizing religious control over intellectual freedom. The mathematician Hypatia was even murdered for studying its remaining Greek texts. Although many texts may have been redistributed to other Mediterranean libraries, the majority were never recovered. The missing years of Jesus between the ages 12 and 30 remain undocumented in the Bible, leading to centuries of speculation. Sparse archaeological evidence suggests Jesus lived a modest life in Nazareth, a small village reliant on farming and fishing. He was referred to as the carpenter in the Gospels and worked manual labor alongside his father Joseph, whose disappearance from texts after Jesus' adolescence suggests he may have died during this period. Nazareth's proximity to Sepphoris, a nearby city undergoing major construction, raises the possibility that Jesus and Joseph found steady work there. The region's use of Aramaic, combined with gospel indications that Jesus could read, supports that he received some education. However, various theories propose Jesus traveled abroad. One claim is that he went to India to study Buddhism and Hinduism, based on accounts like those of Nicholas Notovich and Swami Abhedananda, who both claimed to have seen ancient texts in the Hemis monastery describing Jesus' presence there. Another popular legend places Jesus in Japan. The Takanochi documents, discovered in 1936, describe Jesus traveling to Shingo, marrying, having children, and dying at 106 under the name Daitenku Taro Jirai, after his brother Izukiri took his place at the crucifixion. The village of Shingo maintains a grave said to belong to Jesus and hosts annual festivals. British lore presents another theory, that Jesus, accompanied by his uncle Joseph of Arimathea, visited Glastonbury and studied with the Druids. Legends link him to the construction of an early chapel and refer to a thorn tree believed to have originated from Jesus' staff. However, key artifacts were destroyed centuries ago, leaving only folklore. Some argue the early church suppressed texts, like Gnostic Gospels, the Ethiopian Bible, or the Infancy Gospel of Thomas, to hide Jesus' travels and enforce a unified narrative. The unrecorded years of Jesus' life remain a mystery. The Nazca Lines are large white geoglyphs carved into the red desert of southern Peru, showing lines, shapes, and animals. They were made over 2,000 years ago by the Nazca people, preserved by dry climate and winds. The lines were created by removing dark topsoil to reveal lighter sand, using basic tools like ropes and stakes. They were first described in the 16th century Chronicle of Peru as trail markers. Scientific interest began in the 1920s. Theories on their purpose include astronomical markers, calendars, ritual paths, water-related symbols, irrigation channels, roads, or even alien landing sites. American professor Paul Kosok noticed the lines lined up with the setting sun in winter, leading scientists to think they might have been used for astronomy. German archaeologist Maria Reiche concluded the geoglyphs served as an astronomical calendar. Later research questioned the astronomy theory, proposing links to water worship due to the region's dryness. Animal images may represent water-related meanings. Spiders for rain, hummingbirds for fertility, monkeys for water abundance. Some believe the lines pointed between valleys or to sacred sites, though that's debated since the Nazca knew their land. Trapezoids may have been walked during rituals with centers used for ceremonies or contests. Artifacts found on the lines suggest activity, but some geoglyphs don't match Nazca pottery. The true meaning remains unknown. Colonial powers and modern academia may have suppressed indigenous oral traditions explaining the lines, dismissing them as primitive to favor Eurocentric theories like astronomy or irrigation. There's also evidence that Nazca artifacts and treasures were looted from the Kuachi site before it was even discovered. Maybe the artifacts contained the true meaning of the lines. The Ark of the Covenant was the most sacred object of the ancient Israelites, a gold-covered chest set to hold the Ten Commandments, Aaron's rod and manna, bread from heaven. It was kept in the tabernacle, then in Solomon's temple, and was believed to have divine powers, used in battles and rituals. It disappeared before the Babylonian siege of Jerusalem in 587 BC, and its location remains unknown. One theory claims prophet Jeremiah hid it in the Judean desert. Some illegal digs around Mount Nebo have followed this lead. Others suspect it's beneath the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, where Solomon may have built vaults, but political tensions block exploration. Some think the Ark was taken by the Knights Templar to Europe, or even to Antarctica, linked to Nazi legends. Mount Sinai is also considered, with possible sites across Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Jordan and Yemen. The Dead Sea Scrolls discovery revived interest in the Judean desert as a possible hiding place. In Ethiopia, the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion claims to have the Ark, guarded by monks. But the Ark's fate is still a mystery. Jewish priests or early Christian authorities may have concealed it to protect its divine secrets or prevent misuse. Ancient Advanced Civilizations. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, built around 9600 BC, features massive stone pillars carved by hunter-gatherers, suggesting organized society and ritual before agriculture. The Theopetra cave wall in Greece, dated to 21,000 BC, also challenges conventional timelines, as do many unexplained structures older than known civilizations. The handbag motif, seen in Göbekli Tepe and Sumerian, Olmec and Maori art or carvings, hints at shared lost knowledge. The Sumerian king list, once housed in Iraq but missing since 2003, recorded kings ruling for tens of thousands of years, contradicting accepted history. It also mentions Dilmun, a paradise land of immortality. Related artifacts, including tablets and inscriptions, were taken during the Iraq War and have not been recovered. A version of the list is kept in Oxford, but the lost Iraqi version was reportedly the most complete. The list, along with the Epic of Gilgamesh, contains references to extreme longevity and lost knowledge. And then there's the Anunnaki myth from ancient Sumerian texts that describes godlike beings from a planet called Nibiru, who supposedly engineered humans to mine gold to save their own planet. When humans became too advanced, they were nearly wiped out in a global flood 13,000 years ago, with one man spared, echoing the flood narrative. Afterward, the Anunnaki allegedly taught humans writing, astronomy, and engineering, enabling them to build cities and monuments. Some believe this explains sudden advances in ancient civilizations. The Tartaria theory claims a global high-tech civilization once existed and was erased by a mud flood and rewritten history. All these ideas challenge mainstream history, suggesting ancient advanced societies and knowledge may have been hidden or suppressed. Atlantis is labeled a fictional myth by mainstream history. It was described by Plato as an advanced naval empire that tried to conquer Athens, but was destroyed by a massive flood and sank into the Atlantic Ocean. The story was passed down from Egyptian priests who claimed Atlantis had existed 11,600 years ago, which matches the end of the Younger Dryas period of abrupt climate change and a major sea level rise. Many proposed Atlantis locations include Crete, Santorini, Sicily, Troy, Northwest Africa, Tartessos, and especially the Azores Plateau on the mid-Atlantic ridge, which fits Plato's description of a sunken maritime culture. In Egypt, investigations by Dr. Robert Schock and John Anthony West using seismographs found a large chamber beneath the Sphinx's paws, linked to the Hall of Records, a supposed secret Atlantean archive. A 1978 Stanford Research Institute survey also found underground anomalies. Egyptian authorities have blocked access to these areas for preservation reasons. In March 2025, disputed reports of massive unknown structures descending from the Great Pyramid, including coils and pillars reaching over 600 meters deep, circulated the web, sparking renewed speculation. The Cathars were a spiritual group active between the 11th and 13th centuries, whose peaceful, egalitarian lifestyle and unorthodox beliefs alarmed the Catholic Church. Calling themselves the Church of Love, they rejected the violent God of the Old Testament, embraced ancestral wisdom, and lived by principles of compassion, pescatarianism, and non-violence to nurture a higher spiritual consciousness. Their popularity in southern France led Pope Innocent III to launch a brutal crusade against them, offering fighters wealth and promised salvation. Over 100 years, 19 popes oversaw campaigns that vanquished up to 500,000 people, what some consider the first genocide. Most surviving records come from church sources or crusaders, and many Cathar texts were destroyed, leaving their deeper teachings largely lost. Some link the Cathars to the Holy Grail, suggesting they guarded secrets about early Christianity, sacred relics, or truths that threatened papal authority. By the 14th century, the movement was virtually erased. What wisdom was lost with them remains unknown. Ancient nuclear war theories. Ancient Indian texts like the Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita describe supernatural weapons with effects eerily similar to nuclear explosions: intense heat, blinding light, widespread devastation, poisoned air, and symptoms like hair loss and infertility. Archaeological sites like Mohenjo-Daro in Pakistan, dated to 2500 BC, show alleged but unproven evidence. Vitrified stone, radioactive skeletons, and ruins turned to glass around an epicenter. Also, a radioactive zone near Jodhpur, India, covering 3 square miles has been found to contain levels of radiation consistent with nuclear fallout. Plasma physicist Dr. John Brandenburg claims Mars shows signs of ancient nuclear detonations based on surface readings of uranium and thorium. He suggests this could point to a destroyed Martian civilization wiped out by space-based nuclear war. These anomalies fuel theories that advanced civilizations once had nuclear capabilities, and that evidence of prehistoric atomic warfare is being ignored or suppressed to preserve accepted historical narratives. The Mayan Codices, sacred books of hieroglyphic script on bark paper, recorded the pre-Columbian Mayas' advanced knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and rituals. Only 4 survive out of thousands, as Spanish conquistadors and priests, notably Diego de Landa in 1562, burned them during the 16th century conquest, deeming them pagan to erase Maya culture. Tombs with decayed codices suggest their once vast numbers. The Mayans could track solar eclipses, seasons, and cycles of planets with them. The question is, how did ancient Mayan priests achieve such a high level of astronomical accuracy without telescopes or modern math? The Spanish may have destroyed these texts to suppress potential forbidden knowledge, like cosmological or spiritual insights, to ensure European dominance over New World narratives. The Kingdom of Aksum was a wealthy African empire in what is now northern Ethiopia and Eritrea, known for trade, gold coinage, and giant stone monuments, some of which were the largest in the world. Its location gave access to major trade routes reaching India and China. Though its exact origins are unclear, it's first mentioned in the 1st century AD. Aksum's rulers, called Nagusa, included King Azana, who documented his conquests and adopted Christianity. Aksum declined after the rise of Islam in the 7th century, losing control over the Red Sea. The kings of Aksum later fled to an unknown location. The final fall of Aksum is shrouded in mystery, but local tradition says a Jewish or pagan queen took over around 962 AD, causing destruction and leading to a historical dark age. Later Islamic and European powers may have suppressed Aksum's legacy to downplay Africa's role in global history, possibly to obscure claims it housed the Ark of the Covenant.